All right. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being on here. Our guys are looking forward to get back on Mountaineer Field on Saturday and taking on Kansas. Both of us coming in off a bye week. Excited about welcoming back our fans. We've missed them, missed our season ticket holders. We've missed our students, and we missed our alumni. So it'll be fun to have them back in Mountaineer Field with us. I anticipate a great atmosphere. It's I hope, and this is something we really focused on this week, is as bringing a lot of energy with us, the team and the staff, and I hope the fans bring the same energy to the stadium on Saturday. We had a productive bye week, and now it's on to Kansas. Kind of a quick Kansas preview. Offensively, they're led by their offense coordinator, Brent Dearman. Coach Dearman, successful former high school coach in the state of Alabama. Did a really good job down in BC Rain, which is down close to Mobile. Worked for Gus there at Auburn. You can see some of that lineage in the plays that they run there, and really a long history of having an explosive offense. So did a really good job at the end of last year. There'll be multiple, spread the field out, tempo-oriented. They got a dual-threat quarterback that's going to start the game. I think it all starts with them at running back. Two really talented running backs. Puka Williams, people talk about a lot, deservingly so. 2 years in a row, all-league player. He's electric, not only as a running back, but as a kickoff returner as well. And then Velton Gardner, who's actually their leading rusher. I think he's been really good early part of the season. A lot of speed at wideout. The Parchment kid really hurt us last year, but they can really run. And they've got a big improving O-line. Defensively, defense coordinator DJ Elliott, a lot of respect for. He and I worked together at Kentucky. He was defense coordinator when I was there. Really intelligent guy. They're multiple three-down defense, very sound in what they do, keep edges and really do a nice job as far as just being sound. They've got a lot of experience there at linebacker. I think their safeties are really active, and they did some good things against us last year as well. Special teams, I think it starts with them on their kickoff return. They hit us with two. I think they had the most explosive yardage on kickoff return versus us last year, and we talked about Puka, and then the receiver number 88. I think Horn's his last name. Double check that. Jamal Horn. He's extremely fast, and so we've got to do a really good job on our kickoff team. They're experienced at punter and at kickoff. They're kickoff specialists. They've been doing it for 3+ years now, and they do a nice job with their units. Finishing up here before I take questions, wish Coach Miles said this on the call Big 12 call yesterday. Wish him speedy recovery, and with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Okay, Coach, your first question today comes from Greg Hunter. Go ahead, Greg.
So, Coach, just a general one in terms of guys available, Gamitter, Vandarius Cowan, guys who were injured or sick last game. What's their status?
Yeah, trying to get it cleared up on with James exactly where it's at. I'll know more probably tomorrow. Probably talk about it on the radio show because I'm not trying to avoid it. I just don't have a real clear answer for you right now. And then Vandarius has not practiced yet. He's going to try in a limited capability today, and we'll see how that goes.
Michael Sussman is next. Go ahead.
Coach, over the course of the season so far, you've talked about the importance of West Virginia not beating West Virginia. What are some things in particular that you hope to see on Saturday in regard to improving execution and playing better complementary football?
Reduction in procedure penalties and selfish penalties. We've had our share of those the first 2 weeks of league play, and then not turn the football over. Those are the biggest areas.
Coach, a question that was submitted to us from Bob Herzl. You mentioned tackling last week when we were here, and there's been some talk on that on the Big 12 conference call yesterday about tackling maybe becoming a lost art. Do you agree with that, and what can be done to maybe change that?
Well, I think it's difficult. I think it's been more difficult this year just due to limited practice. You don't have the spring. Very few people had much spring practice. That's where you work a lot of contact there as far as tackling because you got more days in between your practices. And then in fall camp with COVID, everybody was concerned of getting guys close to each other. And so I think there's probably been less tackling in practice during this whole, year than in a normal situation. So anytime you don't practice something, it's gonna be a struggle. We've been really since we went combined. We combined. I don't know. My screen went blank. I don't know if yours did or not. Tackling is ever since we combined our blue and gold team, started practicing as one team. I think third week of fall camp, we've worked on tackling. That's something we do every Tuesday and Wednesday. We do it in drills, not necessarily full tackle to the ground, but we work it, and we believe in how we teach it. I thought we tackled really well against Baylor, not so well against Oklahoma State. So we're a work in progress. I don't know if it's a lost art. I mean, there's still a lot of people playing really good defense. I think our league is playing as a whole. Iowa State, Kansas State, TCU, Oklahoma State. Those are some guys that I watched last Saturday that didn't have many problems tackling.
We'll go to Ryan Pritt next. Go ahead, Ryan.
Hey, Neal, I think yesterday on the conference call you were kind of talking about this 5-game stretch that's looking at you now and how that's kind of unique in the league.
It's real unique. We're the only ones.
Yeah, exactly. From an offensive standpoint here, especially in your passing game, how important is it to maybe try to start quick on Saturday and get some kind of confidence going, see some success happening with that kind of stretch waiting on you in the back end, because there's no more breaks for a while for you guys to work on this thing?
Yeah. It's kind of funny. If you look at just the pure statistics of it, we don't look like a team that struggled throwing the football. Where you get into it and if you look deeper, our yards per attempt's not very good, and that tells you we're not real explosive. So that's something we've got to work on. There's two ways to do it. You got to throw the ball downfield, or you got to make some people miss. And so that was our big point of emphasis. Our completion percentage and those kind of things are fine. We just got to get the ball extended down the field, or we got to make some people miss on those short yardage. And that we did. We worked a lot on the bye week. We've got to get better at it. I think it's going to be a defining, really, how we're going to be as an offense, because we showed the ability to run the football decently to above average, but we've got to be able to stretch the field, and our receivers and our quarterbacks got to be able to make some plays.
We'll go to Kevin Kinder. Go ahead, Kevin.
Coach, and some of those things that you're talking about improving and working on during the off week, does that make you more anxious to see those early in the next game? Can that influence a little bit, what you do early, or do you have to say, no, we need to, stick with what we're doing and just fold those in where they naturally occur?
Yeah, I think we've called them. I got away from them second half against Baylor. We've called them against Oklahoma State the whole game, really, and then the first half of Baylor, we just didn't do a good enough job connecting on them. So we're not really changing anything from how we run the plays. We just got to execute them better. And you're not worried about his legs as much during the bye week. So we worked on more down the field throws because of that, because we didn't have a game on Saturday. But yeah, we'll come in and it's going to be a good mix. We've been pretty balanced if from the whole run pass wise. If you take out probably the fourth quarter of Eastern and the kind of the fourth quarter versus Baylor there.
Cody Nesper, go ahead.
So talking about Puka Williams, is it safe to say that he's kind of a unique running back in the Big 12? And what it is about him that he's had so much success with?
Well, he's a special talent. He really is, and he's done it now for 2+ years. He has the ability to make you miss. They use him in a variety of ways. I fully expect them to line him up all over the field, motion him to the backfield, throwing the ball out of the backfield, line him up in the slot, and do a bunch of different ways. They've been creative this year and in the past, getting him the football. I think he will. He's strong. He's a lot stronger than people give him credit for. He's got really good lower body strength, so he's a difficult tackle. It's been a point of emphasis for us in preparation for them. is really making sure we get hats to the football, because we're not always going to win the one-on-one tackling situation. So we've got to make sure that we get multiple defense players to the football. But he does. He's strong. He runs it inside. He runs it outside. He has the ability even to get yards when it's not blocked very well. You don't see that very often. But it could be a run play called to the left, and you do a pretty good job of stuffing it. He might bounce it all the way out to the right, and that's hard to prepare for. So you got to make sure you keep edges and you play really good responsibility football.
Coach, this one was submitted to us from Thomas Burdell. Any concerns about the future of this season with the recent COVID cases, especially in this league?
No, I don't think necessarily concerns for the year. I think that we all went into this knowing that there was going to be some pauses and some postponements and things like that, and that's kind of where it's been. I think we've been fortunate. I don't know if there's been any serious illnesses, which that's the hope. You hope we can maintain that. But this is going to be a non-conventional year in every aspect, and so I think the teams that can adjust and ability to change things on the fly are going to be the ones that have a chance to continue and improve and stay on the practice field and stay in the games. Yeah, we paused again. Is it the internet connection? You can blame me for a lot of things, but not freezing up on Zoom. We need to switch to hardwire. That was my recommendation. Everybody's got play recommendations for me. That's my recommendation. Switch to the hardwire.
We'll go back to Greg Hunter. Go ahead, Greg.
So, Coach, with Les Miles being COVID positive, a number of coaches have also been, leads me to wonder about your line of succession. What happens if you can't coach?
Do they tell who the designated survivor is? Huh? They don't tell that. They don't tell that, Greg. We got a plan. It's in a vault under,
Go ahead, Chris Anderson.
After the Oklahoma State game, you mentioned that there were some misfits on defense that were a problem. At first glance, I didn't see any or many against Baylor. On film review, did it seem that way to you? And if so, what changes did you make between the two games?
Well, I thought our D-line did a much better job. Part of it is our linebackers are getting more comfortable. If you notice, we played Josh Chandler more in the box this year than we did last year, so he's getting kind of into the flow and understanding box fits where he was outside the box primarily last year. And we're still using him in that capacity. And then Tony understanding, because we're a little bit of a unique defense because we move our D-line so much, the fits off that are a little bit different. And so Tony's getting more comfortable in what we're doing. And the other thing is we weren't perfect against Baylor, but we played so hard we covered it up. And so we had some misfits, and we had some opportunities where the Baylor running backs, maybe they didn't read it right, or they hit it, and our pursuit angles were really good, so we were able to get to them where they were 5- and 6-yard gains against Baylor rather than 15, 20-plus runs that occurred against Oklahoma State. So we still got to clean it up. I think some of that's simplifying what we're doing, and that's and we're figuring out our pieces too. It's there's some different pieces that are playing up there, especially at linebacker. So we're trying to figure out what they can do and what they're best at, and that's what we'll continue to work on.
Next question is from John Antonic. Go ahead, John.
Coach, I can't match Coach Hunter's question. I have a simpler one on Stinkfield. What do you see his role? I saw a stat that really jumped out at me. He's averaging 8.7 yards a carry in the second half. What do you see from him?
Yeah, it's a really strong. Well, here's the thing. We didn't do, and I told him this the day after the game, we didn't do a good enough job getting him the football versus Baylor. And so he continues to perform at that level, then, we're a production-based business. So if you continue to produce, then you got to get the football. And we didn't do a good enough job of that. He had some really good runs and catches. I really like for him to be more active as a punt returner. I think that he's had some opportunities. He's getting more comfortable. That was something that was new to him last year. He's got several games under his belt, so I hope he can continue to be a factor for us and maybe get some bigger returns in the punt return game.
Real quick, do you like to have a change-up guy? I mean, I was looking at the stuff you did at Troy, and you usually had two backs.
Mm-hmm.
A guy got more carries, and then a guy that would maybe a change-up. Is that what you envision from him?
Well, he can do the same things Letty can. He's just not as big. Letty has really improved his ability to run routes and catch the football. We've lined him up out wide a bunch this year. So Letty's improved that aspect of his game, and I think on the same measure, Sinkfield has really improved his ability to run inside the tackles. So Chad Scott, our running backs coach, he really kind of manages that rotation, and I don't change what we're calling based on which running back's in the game.
Go ahead, Mike Kazaza.
Neal, how are you?
Good, Mike. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I have two for you. One would be, I guess, what progress did you see, I'm assuming, amid some challenges with your backup receivers and your second-line guys to maybe get on the field, get some snaps, maybe push the people who are in front of them? And then separately, you've mentioned that as the season went on, you didn't anticipate opponents or yourselves being able to add much because of the scarcity of free time. Do you have to cram in a bunch early in the season in account of that, or have you kind of figured out that maybe that wasn't quite as accurate? And
you talking about installs, like as far as play?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. First of all, so we hadn't played good enough at wide out, and so I think you'll see a more people play at those spots. I think the reps will look a little bit different. I'm not saying we're gonna. It depends who produces this week in practice, who will start the game, but we do plan on playing more, and the reps will probably be a little bit more evenly distributed than they were maybe the last two games. And I think we will play better. Receivers practiced much better last week. We'll see how this week goes, but my expectation is we'll be much improved at that spot. As far as we've been fortunate, and I'm hesitant to even talk about it, but we've been fortunate where we haven't had a whole lot of missed practices or missed games due to COVID. And so our installation and things like that and what we've worked on has been pretty consistent in what would occur in a normal year. Hopefully we can continue to stay COVID free. We had, and I'll take this. So on our test on Sunday, we got them back, and we still, as of this, we're waiting on a couple. Sometimes they're a little slower process, but I think we've got almost everybody in minus one or two that had a test on Monday rather than Sunday, and we don't have any new COVID cases. So we're being fortunate with that.
Coach, a second question from Bob Herzl for us today. Some strange outcomes maybe so far in this college football season, and I know a lot of that can be attributed to disruption and scheduling and your team and things like that. Do you kind of think that will continue for the most of the remainder of this season? Just no rhyme and reason to it and remain kind of unpredictable?
Yeah, I think it's going to be unpredictable. I don't know if the outcomes have necessarily been strange, because I think if you look at it, if you just boxed in the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a good number of upsets in college football in general. But there has been some strange games. There's maybe some high-scoring games that you thought were going to be more of a defense struggle, or maybe some defense struggles that you thought were going to be more points scored. There's obviously been more penalties in a lot of football games. It hadn't been as clean. So I think the unpredictability of college football, I think it's going to continue until, teams and leagues can get in some kind of rhythm. So my expectation is you get in November, it's going to clean up some, and the style of play and the quality of play will resemble what we've all been accustomed to. But it has. I think it's been a little bit unpredictable. And in a lot of ways, it looks like that teams haven't practiced as much, or they haven't been together as much, because in reality, that's what it is.
We'll take these final 4 questions in the queue. Go ahead, Michael.
Through the first few weeks of the season, you guys defensively are first in the conference in total defense yards-wise. What in particular has impressed you about that group this year, and what will be some important things for them to improve on as you guys head into this 5-game stretch that looks like it's going to feature some matchups with some pretty explosive offenses?
Yeah, well, I think it's probably a little early to say that we've arrived. We played week 1, we were better than them. Week 2, we just played okay, and then I thought we played it exceptionally well against Baylor, and that was due really for a couple of reasons. I thought our guys played extremely hard and extremely physical, and if you're going to play hard on defense and you're going to play physical and you do what your coach should do, then we're going to have a chance every week, okay? But we've got to continue to maintain that. I think when you start talking about quality defensive play, those are the defenses that show up week in and week out. Regardless of the opponent, regardless of home, away, it doesn't matter. They show up each and every week, and they're productive. And so my hope is, and our defensive staff's hope is that we get to that point. I don't think we're at that point yet, but I do think that we have some guys that are capable of playing at a high level, and really pushing the rest of our guys. You know, guys that jump out to me that are highly competitive, highly productive. Tony Fields, Tyke Smith, Darius Stills. Those type of guys are guys that we expect to be highly productive each and every week.
Greg Hunter, back to you.
All right, you won't designate the Speaker of the House, so I've got another question for you. In terms of reportedly the NCAA is going to announce that the transfer rule is coming through. You know, nobody needs a waiver; everybody gets one free transfer. Just your general thoughts on that.
Well, it's been assumed that it was coming down the road. I think there's a couple different viewpoints. I've always been, Greg, of the. I just want to know what the rules are, and we'll try to play by them. The transfer deal, I get both sides of it. The thing I'll say in football about the transfer, it's really hard with the hard cap 25. That's what makes it really difficult. I haven't seen a clear line. They say maybe May 1st is the declaration date, which that'll give you a little bit of time for planning. I was hoping they would kind of do a couple windows, maybe – a window in December and then a window in early part of May where student athletes had to declare, because that would allow for better planning with the early signing date and things like that. But I think it's a sign of the times. You know, we're more player friendly and than we've ever been, which is just what it is. It's a world we live in. But not surprised. You know, but I think the 25 hard cap is something that needs to be really, really examined, and I think there's got to be a form of relief under that. I don't have an exact answer. I think my initial thoughts is you should probably be given maybe 5 or 6 exemptions over a 3-4 year window. If you had a year where you lost a couple transfers, the other thing that's going to be muddy now is APR, because so much is the APR is dealing with retention. And so I think that's something that has to be revisited as well.
Next question is from Keenan Cummings. Go ahead, Keenan.
Hey, Neal, how are you?
Doing well.
You mentioned backup receivers. Mm-hmm. Where does Zach Dobson fit in the picture? Is he a guy that can help you soon? Is he a guy that can help you this year? Where does he fit in the picture after getting his waiver?
Yeah, we've worked at trying to get him some work here during the bye week. I'd say he's not ready to go out on Saturdays yet. I think he's a guy that can help us down the road. He really got in here late, was about a week or so behind in fall camp, and then we didn't get his waiver until later too. So we were already a couple games, or I guess 3 games in. So he's been working on scout team primarily. We hope he's a guy that we can get and he can learn, and we can get him in a position where he can help us later this year. He'll definitely help us in the future, but hopefully we can get him to a spot where he can help us later in the year. But it's not going to be this week.
Go ahead, Mike.
All right, I got to do a better job asking my question again here. The adding on your install, if you don't have a lot of open weeks coming up and a lot of time to actually do that, I guess to be really good at what you do is more important than before. Is that still true?
Yeah.
And then also the fact that you can play your 4 games for a freshman whenever the 4-game rule doesn't exist. How does that factor into just treating those guys differently with regard to practice and maybe getting them in at some point where they might be on the shelf otherwise?
Yeah. So, Mike, what we did is we took those 2 bye weeks that we've had already, and we treated both those bye weeks and didn't necessarily spend a whole lot of time on the front end of the bye week. Like take last week, for example, Kansas. We worked 0 Kansas until Friday and Saturday. We practiced a little bit of Kansas on Friday and Saturday. But what we try to do is last week in the first bye week before we played Oklahoma State is because we've already kind of looked and we got a good feel. We spent some time during quarantine and during the summer of kind of putting some shell game plans together versus everybody in our league. And so what we did during those 2 bye weeks is really installed some things that we know that we're eventually going to have to use. And so it gives us a reference point. So both the bye weeks we practiced on Tuesday and Wednesday and then Friday and Saturday. And those Tuesday and Wednesday and both the bye weeks, we worked on things in the future. And so that's kind of how we handled it. The second part of your question on the freshmen, it's really made it easier because it's really I'll give you an example. So we always have a sheet on Sunday after a game that lists everybody played, and then it counts the freshmen, how many games they've played. And I told Ryan Nealon does that for me, and I told Ryan, I was like, hey, the good thing is we don't need that this year, because really since the rule went through, you're looking at that sheet saying, okay, there's got to be some strategy. Do we play the freshmen in games that we think we should win, or do we hold those games and try to get them later in the year when you may have some injuries and things like that? So it takes the strategy out, and what you're trying to do is you still got to operate when you play on the road. At home, it's not as big a deal, but on the road, you still got to operate under that 70 number. But what you're trying to do now is you're trying to get these freshmen that have shown the ability, you're trying to get them involved. And what I mean by that, if you look at like Linnell Carr, he's played some on defense in each of the games. If it was a year ago and we only had to play him in 4, would he have played in all 3 of those games? Probably not, because we would have liked to redshirt him. So that's an example. We've got a couple people that we played on field goal team that we probably normally wouldn't have done if we were having to worry about the 4 games. So that answer your question? Mike?